Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a great day thus far. This week we're going to tackle chapter 8 in Persuasion that deals with nonverbal influency. Okay, and this is sort of an interesting thing. It's what you see and not necessarily what you hear. And the interesting thing that goes about sort of that sort of side of persuasion, right? How is it that what you see, the hand gestures, the movement, and other nonverbal cues that make a difference in whether or not someone's able to persuade you? So it's sort of an interesting topic. You never really consider nonverbal cues too often when it comes down to persuasion. Most people just kind of say, well, you just move your arms, but there's a purpose to it. So let's start off. So not verbal influence. It's not what the person says, but how they say it, right? Think about that. Now, we talk about things like tone, volume, all that stuff, and that actually gets touched on a little bit later on. But just think of the words, I love you, right? Think of the amount of times that someone says, I love you to you, and who's the person who's saying it, and in what context are they saying it, and how are they saying it to you? Right? It's like me saying I love my students, and I do. I love every single one of my students. And if I see you all, I would say I love you, and it's true. And then I see my family, and I tell them that I love them, and that's true. And although I'm using the same words to say that to address both groups, they mean completely different things. So it's an interesting sort of note to think about. It's not what you say, but how you say it. In some cases, what you see, right? So let's talk about the direct effects model of immediacy. And you're talking about immediacy, it equals warmth, closeness, right? It's like, if you think of immediacy, you think of words that help you sort of understand. I think of it like immediate satisfaction, right? Something that just feels good, right? And the direct effects model of immediacy, it's a simple relationship between nonverbal behavior and social influence, right? It's a nice, pat on the back. It's a nod. It's a point, right? Hey, right? What does that tell you? Somebody, you do something and then someone looks at you and says, you know, like, hey, right there, you, nah, you. What, what does that mean? The person, someone's pointing at me like that. I'm like, oh, no, man, you, no, okay, okay. All right. It's all without saying a single word, you're getting a feeling there. And it's sort of interesting the way all of that comes about. Now, there are a couple of types of nonverbal communication that are interdependent, right? So, kinesics, your head, your shoulders, your knees. It says here head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. If you have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that song. Or you as a kid may actually remember it. But it's really the idea of our body. When we talk about kinesics, it's our body movement, right? And how that plays a role. And the first thing that it touches on here is the eyes habit, right? The power of eye contact and persuasion. Do you ever hear somebody say, like if you had little kids or when you were a little kid, or maybe you saw your nephew, your sister, whoever, and their parents were telling them, hey, look him in the eye when you say that. What does that mean? Right? Sort of the idea here is that if you're lying, you can't look me in the eye. I can tell when you're lying. I can see it in your eyes, right? And it's sort of an interesting thing about the eyes, right? It's how you can smile, right? It talks about mirroring, right? Or mimicry. And there's a difference there, right? When you're talking about mirroring, it's like seeing somebody on the opposite side of you and, as they do something, you do something. They smile, you smile. And then there's mimicry where it's not necessarily mirroring in the sense that you're copying what they're doing as a sign of connection, but you're mimicry in the sense of what? You're almost kind of making fun of the person, right? There's emblems, which are nonverbal behaviors such as hand movements that have precise verbal meaning, right? This is when you start seeing things like stop, right? And then you have illustrators with movements that describe that describe things like, I love you this much, right? Imagine somebody's telling you, I love you this much. Your arms are up. You're this tall, you're that short, right? It's just one of those things that sort of play a role in your when it's describing something. The waves, they're flowing, right? And then there's self-touching behaviors, adapters, like scratching your head, scratching your arm, stroking your hair. It's like, I don't get what that means, right? It's like, hmm, all those things that you're doing, like, I don't know, right? I don't know. They send a message without you saying. You ask somebody a question and they go like this. You kind of know that they don't know, right? Now, there's a couple of things that, as we move on, that's called haptics. And haptics has to do with touching, the impact of touch on persuasion. And the way I like to sort of see this is it's kind of like how you greet someone, right? Think about how you greet someone versus a handshake versus a hug, right? Or a bro hug, if you bro and then you kind of reach around and you tap them in the back, or a little cute one where you just kind of like, kiss somebody on the cheek, or it's just a high five, fist pump, now elbow, right? If you're doing, how does touching another person make the other person feel, right? The next thing here is keeping your distance, proxemics, right? Using space as communication. Proxemics is really the idea of the distance between two people, right? And there's times when it's okay and there's times when it's not. Right? My family and I were just in Little Tokyo in downtown LA this past weekend to eat some ramen, and we were in an elevator, and we were tightly packed in that elevator. And although it was a little odd, it's an elevator, you expect it. But if we were outside the elevator and we had stayed compact as a little group with those other strangers that were in the elevator with us, that would be weird because we're not used to being so close in an open area. And so when someone's trying to persuade you and they're depending on who they are, they're within your personal space, it actually could what? Work against them. So they're no longer persuading you. All of a sudden you're what? Pushing them away. However, if it's someone that you find intimacy with, right? Maybe being close to you is persuasive. Right? Maybe holding your hand, caressing you when you need help, when you need attention, when you're feeling down. Maybe that is persuasive. So it's important to sort of understand proxemics and how the closeness you are, the physical closeness, I mean, like the distance between you and that other person or you and that other thing that's trying to convince you, that's important too. Next thing you have is chronemics, which is all good things come to those who wait. How time influences persuasion and does time communicate? And really, the great example that I like to use when it comes to this is this. Imagine you text a significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your partner, your wife, your husband, whoever, right? Someone you love, right? Or, you're in that early phase of loving, right? And you text them. It's like, I don't know, 2 o'clock. And then they don't text back. All right, they must be busy. And then 4 o'clock. Wow, okay. 5 o'clock rolls around. What's going on? 6 o'clock. Now they get out of work at 6, so yeah, they're gonna text you any minute now. No. 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock. By this time, it's already been a couple of hours since you text them, and they have not texted you back yet. What's the deal? What are they doing? Who are they with? What's going on? Right? Time sends a message. The fact that they haven't responded to you in a timely manner, sending a message to you that you're interpreting as they don't care about me. Oh, that person must not wonder or must not care whether or not they text me back. I'm unimportant. That may not be the case, but it can be, right? Because time itself sends a message, right? Then you have artifacts and physical features of the environment. You dress for success, artifacts that we own, cars, clothes, etc. What do those things say about us? What does it say about a person who drives a luxury car versus a non-luxury car? What does the environment say? A placement of products, for example, can persuade us at a store. You know, where do they put the purchase items? Where do they put the sale items? Where do they put the clearance items? Right? If they put the clearance, have you ever noticed how the clearance items are in the back of the store? Right? So you have to go through the store in order to make your way to the clearance items. But on your way to the clearance items, you may run into a sale. You may run into a really nice jacket. You may run into a nice pair of pants. You may run into a nice dress. And you're like, ooh, I didn't see this. I was going to make my way to the clearance, but ooh, this is nice. Right? It plays a key role. So the things that we own, the cars that we drive, how we look, how we do things, right? That sends a huge message. Now there's also physical appearance. Is beauty persuasive? Think about that for a second. Now, keep in mind here, right? This is something you got to think about. There's that saying that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So just because you think something is beautiful doesn't mean that somebody else is beautiful. So keep that in mind, okay? There is no sort of all form that we're looking at as far as what beauty is. There are some things that are put out there by society, by media, and all that stuff. Yeah, there is. Studies have been made about successful people and how height and their good looks sort of play a role in that. But remember, you have your own idea of what beauty is. And so there's the body shape, there's the facial appearance, there's the hair, right? We got hair here, right? My hair up here, right? My height. What does that say about your physical appearance? And it's sort of an interesting thing. It sort of goes along with fashion, right? Is growing a big beard or having a handlebar mustache, is that sort of an in thing right now? Why? Why is that important? Is casual Fridays more of a thing now versus or just casual appearance? Is that more of a thing now where instead of now we all wear jeans to work versus wearing suits? When did that change? How is that important? Imagine you're going off and you're going to make $1 million purchase. Let's say you're buying your first car, your first house. Let's see, a couple $100,000, right? And so you're waiting, and the person who's going to help you, your real estate agent or the sales agent, shows up and they're wearing shorts and a t-shirt. What message does that send? Does it matter? Those are important questions that we have to sort of see. And then you have paralinguistics and persuasion. Pump up the volume, right? Your vocalics, your pitch, your rate, your pauses, volume, tone, right? It's how you doing, right? I wrote Joey. If you're friends with, if you've ever seen the show Friends, and you see Joey, you know, one of his sort of catchphrases, how he says how you doing. Now he says how you doing in very different ways to very different people, and kind of going along with what I said earlier in this chapter when we talked about I love you is how you say that to somebody, in what tone, in what pace. That says a lot about that word and what that word means. Think about that. You know, you ask someone how they are, hey, how are you? And they say, fine. Well, they said the word fine. And fine means they're okay, but are they okay? No. What makes you say that? Right? The tone, how they said it, that sharpness, right? It does. All those things matter. And so as we start to understand how those nonverbal cues play a huge role in how someone persuades, we can actually accentuate those things. We can accentuate our nonverbal cues. It makes a difference. All right. All right. As always, if you have any questions regarding this chapter, you're always welcome to email me. I'm here to help you out. And if you want to set up a Zoom meeting, we can do that as well. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.